As India's blockbuster general elections came to a close, complete with a grand finale and edge-of-seat thriller that unfolded on Tuesday, the results threw every exit poll, every pollster, and all deep theories out of the window. In came a comeback story for the ages. 50-something Rahul Gandhi, with his coal-quotient flaws and imperfections, and the permanent white t-shirt, cargos and loafers attire.
और मैं हिंदुस्तान की जनता से, इंडिया गठबंधन के पार्टनर्स से, कांग्रेस पार्टी के हमारे सब नेताओं और बब्बर शेर कार्यकर्ताओं से दिल से धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूं। आपने संविधान को बचाने का पहला और सबसे बड़ा कदम ले लिया है।
He walked the country twice in that attire in biting cold and dusty trails, stormed Instagram, bore the dynast baggage, and sprang a surprise no one forecasted with a wide stretch.
Last night, every single one of you congratulated me. Many of you came, hugged me, and congratulated me. But last night, my mother came to my room, and she sat with me, and she cried.
My great-grandfather spent 15 years in jail. My grandmother was shot 32 times and my father was blown into bits. So I understand a little bit about what this country is.
I don't think when I joined politics, 2004, I ever imagined what I see going on in our country. To be the first person to get a full criminal sentence on defamation, get the maximum sentence, and to be disqualified from parliament.
If you read the Constitution of India, you will find that India is described as a union of states.
The entire opposition is struggling in India. So we decided to do something quite strange. We just decided to walk across the country.
I think the Congress party will do very well in the next election. I think it'll surprise people because I think there is a hidden undercurrent building.
You will never ever rule over the people of the states of India.
Gandhi has already launched his first offensive as part of an opposition that could be the strongest in the last decade. In a press conference on Thursday, he questioned the massive surge in the markets after the exit polls, followed by the steep fall on the day of the results.
30 लाख करोड़ रुपए का लॉस होता है। किसका लॉस होता है? रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स का लॉस होता है। तो ये जो आप देख रहे हैं, हिंदुस्तान की स्टॉक मार्केट की हिस्ट्री का सबसे बड़ा स्कैम है। वी डिमांड ए जेपीसी इनटू दिस। वी आर एब्सोल्युटली कन्विंस्ड दैट दिस इज ए स्कैम।
So what worked for brand Rahul Gandhi? Many say it's been his unconventional style of politics, sidestepping hostilities and brickbats, and calm in the face of high-voltage aggression and powerful opponents. Political decisions like choosing not to fight in Amethi against Smriti Irani, dealing astutely with senior opposition leaders, and seat-sharing arrangements too worked. To dwell on the comeback of Rahul Gandhi with Congress at 99 seats and the all-powerful BJP below the majority mark, I'm delighted to bring in Pratap Sudan, the man behind iconic award-winning political campaigns like Incredible India and India Shining. Joining us too is one of India's best-known social commentators, columnists and brand specialist Santosh Desai. Also, my colleague and senior editor of the Economic Times, CL Manoj, who's been tracking Indian politics and especially the Congress and Rahul Gandhi for well over a decade. It's Friday, June 7th. I'm your host Ratna Bhushan from the Economic Times and you're listening to The Morning Brief. Bringing in Pratap first, now managing partner and chief creative officer of ad agency Bang in the Middle with over 3 decades in the industry. Pratap tells me what worked.
The couple of things I think that worked for him. One is, of course, what you just said, the privileged label. So he knew that he was up against it. And he had to therefore do everything to negate and nullify that label, or what that label entails, or that baggage that he comes with. So, which is perhaps why after the last, rout, so to say, they've been very, very careful about rebuilding his image. Okay, so you had a negative image to start with, and they had to do everything to sort of nullify it. And then, of course, it was also pitted against, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was the towering, tall personality, very, very aggressive, very, very loud, very authoritative, and all that.
Absolutely.
And who was very distant, let's say, from the ordinary people. I mean, he was very aloof. He was very aloof in terms of he was not even seen in the company of his own people, right? He was always by himself. So you knew clearly what Rahul Gandhi was fighting. So which is why I think the two Bharat Jodo Yatras, right, which he did, was all about coming closer to the people. And therefore, whatever he did of understanding and going down to the masses and understanding people and their problems at road level, at street level, at physical level, he waded into the public, right? He was so close to them
Right.
and touching distance. I mean, people knew that he was a real breathing human being with his own flaws. And I also think the Pappu image worked for him, because the average
Okay.
man on the street is a Pappu anyway, right? I mean, that has been a very, very planned way of scuttling the privileged image that he had, and the prince image that he had, etc. And he actually came down to people and he listened to them. More important is also the fact how he spoke to the youngsters. I mean, if you notice most of his the Bharat Jodo Yatras, he made sure that he spoke and understood the problems of the youngsters, and which is what possibly worked for him in the elections, because I think the youth voted for him.
Very, very interesting that you say this, and absolutely bang on. So, Pratap, tell me, if you were Rahul Gandhi's creative and brand manager, creative advisor and brand manager, what would you tell him? Some suggestions that you would give him.
The one thing that I would want to tell him is, be you. I think he played his part correctly. He came with his flaws, but from whatever image that he has sort of shared himself, he comes through as somebody who is down to earth. He may not know everything. Why should anyone know anything? Nobody in the world does. So you'll have your own flaws, you'll have your own mistakes, you'll admit your own mistakes. There are things that you know, things that you don't know. I think you should continue with what the path that he has been on, and connected with India. And see, the thing is, everyone loves an underdog, and he was the typical underdog. And David versus Goliath kind of story came true in a way. He actually came through much better in the elections than the Prime Minister did. And I think he needs to maintain that. He needs to maintain that. And maybe, and I personally like the white T-shirt and the brown trousers that he wears. I think it's pretty cool. It's so unlike a politician, a typical, topi-wearing politician. And the moment you see that kind of an attire, somebody is out to mulct you, right? You don't want to be cheated by another politician. At least this guy looks like every other youngster that you see today.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it so well. And, I want to ask you this, Pratap. Rahul Gandhi is actually super fit. He's a super fit politician. And he's almost, like you said, a lot of youngsters may have voted for him. He's also, maybe identifying himself with Gen Next as well as, the elderly in the Bharat Jodo
Right.
Yatra. So how much is that physical sort of image? How much did that work compared to an older politician and who was changing his attire often, and
At some level, Rahul Gandhi's physical stature, the fact that he walked across the country twice, right?
try
East to west,
exactly that needs super fitness.
and he was standing right there in the cold, in the rain, in the sun, right? And he was fine, right? Of course, I mean, I don't know whether he fell ill during that time, but the fact is that a lot of us wouldn't be able to do what he did. So, that was proving fitness again is a big thing in India. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at your Instagram and things like that, there's so many fitness people or people who've become stars who come from very small towns. So I think Rahul Gandhi, in his own way, with his own flaws and imperfections and, peccadillos and all that, he does drive a certain kind of image and following. And I think he's a little above 50 at the moment. And I think he's got another 20, 30 years to play. He is already matured. He is going to mature. Right? He will understand the game. So he will make the right calls. And he has another 25 to 30 years ahead of him. So mind you, he is going to be here for a longer time.
In every marketing and branding presentation, the consumer is king. And now it seems the voter is king. Who better than Santosh, who's been in leadership or consulting roles with Future Brands, ad agency McCann, and now on the board of Nykaa to talk about this. He tells me marketers can learn a thing or two from Gandhi's comeback story and what they can, well, unlearn from the Ayodhya Ram Mandir marketing story. That brand building is not about power, money, and influence. That it's about keeping your consumer, or in this case, your voter, center stage. So, Santosh, what's worked for brand Rahul Gandhi in 2024?
I think he comes to as a much more mature and a kind of a ripened version of himself. And I think he has connected, very well with people. I think fundamentally, the difference is the fact that there is a certain calmness about him, which I think, and a relatability about him, which I think has worked.
Yes, absolutely. Calmness and relatability. Coming to my next question, for almost 2 years now, he's been seen very simple attire, white shirts, cargos, denims, loafers. That's been written about also on the white t-shirt. The look seems to convey simplicity, aspiration, yet youthfulness. So how much did that work in making him the people's person that he's coming out to be?
I think it's part of, the overall package. I think it's important because I think in some ways he's set himself up in opposition to Mr. Modi. And Mr. Modi, for instance, is known for his, costume changes and the fact that there is a certain great attempt, to invest in a certain kind of a look and a persona, before the Bengal elections, the longer beard, etc. So he clearly pays attention to and crafts his persona. In direct contrast, Rahul Gandhi wears exactly the same thing every time. There's a certain casualness. I think the t-shirt connotes, apart from the things you mentioned, a certain casualness and accessibility. It's not daunting. It does not create a power distance between him and his audience. Like you said, it is modern, it is young. It is not the attire that everybody wears, but it is something that anyone can relate to. It is not daunting in the least. So I think those are the kind of things that help in creating, that sense of relatability.
Absolutely. And very interesting that you say relatability. That brings me to my next question, Santosh. Rahul Gandhi has been targeted as a dynast, like we all know, not cut out for politics. There have been so many memes and whatnot by rivals. And also from within party circles, there are murmurs. So is 2024 a comeback for brand Rahul Gandhi that's here to stay?
I think it should be. If Rahul has got certainly a second chance, maybe even a third one this time around, because I think there have been reasons why people have been suspicious of him as a politician, because very often he hasn't come through as being that his heart is in the job. But I think that has changed decisively. I think the Bharat Jodo Yatra really helped change that perception. And I think it is cemented in a way which I suspect is durable. So I would be surprised if he were to regress from here. I think this is something he can build on.
Okay, something that he can build on. Santosh, you've been associated with big brands for a very long time. Tell me, can you give me 2 examples of brands and draw parallels with them, with Rahul Gandhi, brands that have been, sort of written off or memed, but still stayed the course, stayed graceful, didn't get ruffled. That is the sort of persona and image that is coming out. So I just wanted to draw some India Inc. examples from this.
You certainly have brands that have been written off and that have come back. You will have brands like that. You had brands like, for instance, Royal Enfield. You had the Bullet that came and that vanished. It was the favorite of rural people. And then it came back in a new form, which is now Royal Enfield, and it's almost like a cult brand. So I think it's a good example of a brand. But I'm not sure whether you can actually draw parallels with Rahul Gandhi, because I think in Rahul Gandhi's case, the fact that he was constantly in the public eye, he was constantly attacked, constantly made fun of. Brands can't sustain that kind of punishment. Only politicians can.
Very, very interesting point. Brands can't sustain that kind of, longevity of, pushback. So this is my next question. What can marketers learn from his comeback?
I think the fact that of course, resilience and perseverance. I think the fact that you keep at it, and when in doubt, go back to the consumer, which is what actually, in a sense, Rahul has done. He has gone back. I mean, if you look at the Bharat Jodo Yatra, it was a way of saying, okay, let me do the difficult thing and let me go back into the field. Let me sort of do it the hard way. Not take any shortcuts, because he was seen as somebody who was an armchair kind of person who spent most of his time abroad, flying off, his heart not in the job. The Bharat Jodo Yatra was concrete example, not by saying that, but by doing things. And then the other thing was that make direct contact. Your answer will lie there. Whenever in doubt, your compass is the fact that you go back to the people who make you who you are. So I think is the biggest learning from Brand Rahul.
Absolutely. And tell me, so, in a sense, does this tell us that brand building need not be about power, money, influence? It could be, connectivity, like you said, going back to the consumer. Would you agree that, that this is what it would take for brands, which among so much competition, we have competition across every category, whether you see cars or food or FMCG or, phones. So just trying to draw a parallel here.
No, actually, I would argue that brands are always about connectivity and never about money and power. Money and power can help scale brands, but brands at their heart are about, an idea that resonates with its audience. So, I mean, take an example of a brand that was built without money and power. It was a very short-lived brand. Today, it's a discredited brand. But Anna Hazare, for a short period of time, he captured the hearts of so many people in India. So many people thought a transformation was coming because of this man who had no money or no power. So brands that don't have to do with money and power. Yes, larger than life brands are built once you have that relatability. Mr. Modi also may be a larger than life brand, but at the heart lies a certain relatability or something which he represents that connects with people. Rahul, I think now finally has something that connects with people. And I think it's important that he takes that forward.
But what about the political shenanigans, the image makeover within party circles, and what went behind a grueling election that involved some 640 million voters? Here's Manoj with insider scoops from within the world's largest election, and particularly the Congress Party. Manoj, how do you think Rahul Gandhi has evolved as a political leader in the past couple of years?
Well, I think Mr. Rahul Gandhi, ever since he became most important leader of the Congress Party, that first he got a important leadership post after being the general secretary for a while. He became the vice president of the Congress Party in 2012. And then he led as a de facto leader. So he had a long track record of coming out with many experiments in the organizational front, on the campaign front, coming out with electoral themes like Chaukidar Chor in the last election. Sometime a couple of years ago, he took out a Bharat Jodo Yatra from Kanyakumari to Srinagar. During that yatra, Congress faced another defeat in Gujarat, Bharat Jodo Yatra. Then we have an election later in the Hindi heartland where the Congress received a big blow in losing Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Then Rahul Gandhi took out another yatra, Bharat Jodo Nyay Yatra. And now this election, Congress got 90 seats with India. And generally, after a very long time, Rahul Gandhi is on he's being seen as a man who has delivered for the Congress Party, a leader who has found his moment after a very long time. And also, if you go through the details I gave you, one thing would be that despite many defeats, that did not affect the Rahul Gandhi's position in the Congress Party. That is the advantage when the political parties have important family controls. So unlike many other leaders in other parties and Congress, you would see whenever there was election defeats, many PCC presidents have to resign, general secretaries have to resign, or they will be shunted out. So Rahul Gandhi, always being a Gandhi, had also certain immunity from accountability. So if you are not scared about your position getting weakened due to defeat, then you are getting the benefit of a longer stay in the leadership.
Right, right. Very true, Manoj. I'd like to draw your attention to something else now. According to available data, Rahul Gandhi's social media presence, his accessibility, connectivity to youth, it has surged in the past 1 year. Would you agree? And if yes, what has led to all this? This connect and social media, where the youth are on social media, and his Instagram, numbers have really shot up in the past 3-4 months. I was just reading some data from an agency. So, what has led to this?
Yes, Rahul Gandhi has got a very prominent social media presence. One, of course, he is a very well-known personality. He's among the most important opposition leaders. So that attraction is there. And also he's heading the second largest political party. So while Mr. Rahul Gandhi's leadership itself attracts a lot of attention, he also heading a very big political setup, which is also conscious as much as he is about the importance of social media as a new platform for political messaging, propaganda, campaign, and image building. So he has that institutional backing.
Right, right. Absolutely correct. And finally, Manoj, what next do you expect for brand Rahul Gandhi?
Rahul Gandhi being the leader of the most important leader of the Congress party, and being Congress party being the largest opposition party, he will have much more space in the opposition turf than any other opposition leaders. So in the coming days, with many state elections coming and otherwise, with the one party majorities coming to an end, the larger opposition regrouping will mean more attraction for the opposition and Rahul Gandhi. People will want to know how the opposition, and as an important leader of the larger opposition and the Congress party, how Mr. Gandhi is conducting, what is he planning. So that attraction will be growing.
The story goes that at a recent India Bloc rally, Gandhi was requested by a senior leader to switch to a formal kurta or shirt. He turned down the request politely and stuck to the white t-shirt, dark cargo attire. Those who've known him closely say the Bharat Jodo Yatra, which began in September 2022, was what started the carefully done makeover of Rahul Gandhi. With a smart casual look that conveyed youthfulness, aspiration and accessibility, in sharp contrast to BJP's nationalism, welfare and Hindutva idealism. Something Gandhi created himself, aimed at distancing himself from an image that critics had spun around him. But going forward, a lot will depend on his perseverance, ability to deal with alliance partners, and political and personal acumen. Brand Rahul has a long way to go and lots to keep proving himself. That's all for today. You've been listening to The Morning Brief, and I'm your host Ratna Bhushan. This episode was produced by Surohini Jain, sound editor Rajas Naik, executive producers Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Barman. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Do tune in to ET Play for all audio content, including The Morning Brief. You can listen to our podcast on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead. All external sound clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.